You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
Here's George Foreman with InventHelp.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee a company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
Get your free inventor's information. Call 1-800-353-6490. That's 1-800-353-6490. Again, 1-800-353-6490.
At St. Jude, our family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
Welcome to Freaky Fridays with Social Claude. The gap between science, the paranormal, and spirituality is far and wide. Scientists reject what they cannot explain. Others believe without explanation. Your host, Social Claude, will bridge the gap between science, the paranormal, and spirituality. Welcome to Freaky Fridays with Social Claude. Before I get to my very special guest, I wanted to thank my producer, Rick Robinson. You actually may hear him chime in from time to time. Hey, Rick, thanks for helping out.
Not a problem. It's what I do.
Okay, great. Tonight's guest is actually my spouse, Dr. Bessie. Tonight's show will discuss animal empathy and their spiritual nature. And here's a brief bio of Dr. Bessie. Dr. Bessie is a PhD in public policy. Her expertise is food policy and urban food systems. Her other specialties include policy analysis, sustainable communities, and public management and leadership. Dr. Bessie writes a weekly blog on food policy issues and is working on a book about the future of urban agriculture. Dr. Bessie wrote her dissertation on urban agriculture and urban farms and the challenges of feeding large populations in the city. Her public speaking events include a conference presentation at Harvard Law School and a panel discussion for a food series at Northeastern University. She developed a series of webinars on the global food system at Walden University. Dr. Bessie also reviews scholarly articles and books and is an editor for an academic journal. But most importantly, Dr. Bessie wants you to know that she loves animals. She learned about the cruelty to farm animals when she researched her topic on food policy. This fueled her interest in animal welfare, and she's here to tell us more about that and some other very interesting things. Thanks for joining me tonight, Dr. Bessie.
Well, thanks for having me today, Claude. I'm very happy to be here. Okay,
great. I think that the first topic, I'm going to actually introduce it because this is something that happened. It happened to me and my mom, and you were around at the time, but this is something that happened. I wanted to share with the universe. This is the late 1990s, and my mom was very ill, and I just knew inside that she wasn't going to make it. This was, her time to go, and I was visiting her every day at the. She was in a rest home awaiting surgery. They thought that maybe they could do something, and they really didn't know what they were facing. But anyway, she was in this rest home, and I visited her a lot. And one time I asked her, my mom's Jewish, but secular Jew. But I asked her anyway. I said, would you like a rabbi? And she said no. She kind of revolted at the idea, and of course I accepted that. I knew that she was, pretty much an atheist and all that. So what I did is the only thing I could do was to pray, and I prayed for a gentle passing for her because I knew there was nothing that anyone could do. And it turns out later I was right. But anyway, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that a day or so after I prayed for help for her, I visited, and she told me that a ghost cat walked by her bed, and the cat's name was Timmy. It's a really nice tiger cat, and everybody loved this guy. And he walked by, and I knew from interfacing with some Native Americans that there's certain questions that you may want to ask. And I asked her what, how did it make you feel, or what did this mean to you? And what she said to me was, "Follow me." And I'm thinking to myself, Wow. This is like, I couldn't have imagined this as a way for her to be guided to the, what I call a spirit world or heaven. Anyway, that's the story. Now, you were around at the time. We had been married maybe a short time, actually, then.
Right.
And I just wanted to get kind of your feelings years later.
Well, I always, when you tell that story again, it reminds me about how much pets really help us. And it seemed to me that when you put your goodwill out there to ask the universe to help your mother, that all the things that she loved came to fruition to help her. All those pets she had and everything like that came together for her. And so Timmy was the one that represented all that goodwill from the animals. And he was going to help her move into the next, universe. And I thought that was really interesting. It was very peaceful when I hear it again, many years later, because it seemed to me that Timmy took the fear away from her, and she realized she had friends there. They would comfort her. She didn't have anything to fear. I always liked that story because I've read other stories about people. There was a story I read about recently. A woman was really sick, and one of her favorite pets passed away. And so, she was really getting very, very sick, and she had a near-death experience. And while she was in this near-death experience, the pet appeared to her. And the little guy told her, your father won't survive if he loses both of us, if he loses one of his favorite pets and his daughter. And so the woman decided when she was in this near-death experience that she told the pet that, don't worry about it. I promise that we'll meet again because all dogs go to heaven. And so after that, she woke up, she recovered, and she told the story to her father, and he said, yeah, he believed everything that she said, and he was, definitely in doubt about what she was saying initially, but then when she explained it, the pet said not to worry about it, that everything would be all right, because they would meet up again down the road. And I thought that was really a really nice story, again, to show how pets really help their owners in their own way.
That's a nice anecdote, and I want to kind of put a little disclaimer on our discussion in that, it's easy to find a prosaic explanation to all these things, but when you keep hearing over and over again people having these experiences, and you really have to wonder, is there a core truth? And I'm a firm believer there is. And I think the core truth is that something I thought of maybe about a year ago is that that love is kind of the glue that binds us to our ancestors, our former pets, loved ones, friends, and that love, it basically transcends life and time and space and all these things that we think we're trapped in, and it just goes beyond that. And I would urge people to have an open mind about this, because they may be missing out on something in their own life by shutting out kind of this input from this other realm. We most of us sense is real, but we can't prove it, and we don't have to.
Right. When a lot of it depends on what you believe. As you said, you put your prayers out there to the universe, and they were answered in their own way. Okay, that was what Timmy was supposed to do for your mom.
Yeah, and that might be a great segue to our next topic. I'll introduce this next topic, and after that, it's going to kind of be you can kind of control things, because this is another. I've actually written about this, and it's kind of fresh in my memory. Around 5 years ago, our cat, Mr. Bean, was very ill, and we never really got a diagnosis, but it was pretty clear he had cancer or something really bad, and there's not much that the veterinarian could do, and other than these heroic things, and we didn't want to put him through that. And we were just struggling with watching him suffer, and some kind of strange series of events happened. Dr. Bessie just so happened to be watching her favorite show, My Cat from Hell. And on that particular episode, there was a cat that was suffering, and the cat guy, I forget his name,
Jackson Galaxy.
All right, Jackson Galaxy, that's a great name. He brought in a therapy cat, and I never heard of that. So Bessie's watching this, and so anyway, a little time after that, we're at a local pet store, and they had an adoption area with cats. And they don't sell cats, which is a great thing, because there's plenty of them to adopt. So she spotted this neat adult cat who was kind of sitting in the middle of all these kittens jumping on him, but he looked like he was watching over everybody. And so I went in there and I said, wow, that's a great cat. And his name was Arthur. And he's named after the street where he was found. He was supposedly feral, but he wasn't behaving like that. He was just a really great cat. And so we kind of left the store together, and then we had a discussion about it, and we started thinking, well, maybe Oscar would be a good therapy cat for Mr. Bean. And we went back and forth, and I was hesitant to take on another pet because, Mr. Bean was suffering, and it's another responsibility. And for once in my life, I was kind of being the adult in the room, which is odd. And and Dr. Bessie was more, proactive on this, and kept bringing it up. So I sent an email or I called, I forget, the person running the local shelter where Arthur came from. We renamed him Oscar. And I asked, I told her about Mr. Bean. I said, would Arthur make a good therapy cat? And she replied back to me, he would be excellent in that role. And I don't think she was just saying that because she wanted a cat to be adopted. She said it because it was true. And so we ended up adopting Arthur. We renamed Oscar. And the story behind his name is funny. He was sitting on the desk or something, and I saw this dust bunny on his nose. And I thought of Oscar Madison, the slob from The Odd Couple. And I also thought of Oscar Peterson, the pianist. And I said, Oscar's a great name. And the name stuck, so he's now Oscar. So anyway, Oscar was a great help to Mr. Bean. And Mr. Bean, actually got better for a while. And then at first they didn't get along, but in the end, they were buddies. And we call Oscar Mr. Bean's, his brother. And what ended up happening is I think that Oscar kind of eased the passing of Mr. Bean, and he also eased the passing as far as we were feeling horrible about it. We loved Mr. Bean. He was another rescue cat, and that just that broke our hearts. But now we had Oscar, and since then Oscar's been an amazing help to me. And I've spoken about this publicly that I suffer from, or I don't consider it suffering. I live with depression and anxiety, and he's been a great help for me. And so that's kind of the Oscar story, Oscar and Mr. Bean story.
Right. And, one of the things I really appreciate that Oscar did for Mr. Bean was, you remember, Mr. Bean would sit in the dark and he'd hide. He wouldn't come out. He wouldn't eat. But then when we got Oscar, Mr. Bean started acting like a cat again. He'd come out, he'd go out on the deck and sit in the sun and jump around. And he really started to feel like a cat again. And I really appreciate that for Oscar. I'll forever be grateful for him for helping Mr. Bean. I mean, for the last few months that he was with us, at least he really felt like a cat. And I thought that was important. So Oscar and Mr. Bean will always be very special to me. Always very special.
Yeah, I noticed that when you do your nightly ritual of prayers, you always bring up Mr. Bean and our other former pets, and I know they're listening. And as I said before, our love for each other, whether they're animals or people or friends or family, I think that literally transcends these dimensions that we think are barriers. And Oscar's just a great guy anyway. I love having him around. He's definitely a kind of a clown at times, but definitely interesting.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So, yes, I'm glad I followed my intuition on that because I really wanted to find a way to help Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
So, thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah, we may as well start the next topic, and then probably be taking a break soon.
Okay.
And the next topic is Dr. Bessie's passion for animals and her PhD, and you recently wrote a blog about that, if you'd like to talk about it.
Sure. I did write a blog about this and how when I worked on my research, I was looking at some ideas around sustainability. And sustainability is one of those big words that means, conserving resources for present and future generations. Well, that can mean a whole lot of things. And I started to do some more research and looking into, agriculture and water conservation and soil and climate and all these different areas. And when I started to look into the area of farm animals, I realized really how cruel it was. And even if I wanted to research it, I couldn't let that keep tearing at my heart because I just couldn't do that. So I had to figure out a different way to figure out how can I help animals with my research? What is it that I can do? What is it that I could do? So I decided that maybe what I should try is a backdoor method rather than just attack an issue like farm animal cruelty or, puppy mills, things like that. I didn't want to go to something that was so painful to me. I couldn't just study it and deal with that for a long period of time. So I decided to try something around food policy. It's sort of a backdoor way to help animals. One of the things that I learned about my topic on food policy is something called resilience. And resilience is the ability to embrace biodiversity, and that includes plants, animals, culture, society, economics, and long-term solutions. And that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about understanding what food policy is about, because it's a way to change people's behaviors. And one of the challenges that I saw in looking at this whole animal welfare thing is, well, most people just don't want to stop eating meat, for example. They don't want to just do that. So I thought I should try another backdoor way for people to start changing the way that they think about food. And my goal was to try to help people understand that one of the ways they can make this planet a better place for everyone and the future generations is to try to grow their own food. Food production is an easy thing that people can do. As you said, Rick, you have a garden, you can plant all kinds of fruits, vegetables, herbs, all kinds of things like that. And when you start to consume different types of foods like that, it makes the planet a better place for everyone, specifically the animals. That was one of the things I wanted to really help people understand. On top of that, learning to grow and eat fresh foods also has lots of health benefits as well.
Now, you mentioned, just to clarify, Rick's garden. You're talking about Rick, our producer, and off air before the show, he was talking about his garden. So that's where that came from.
Right, correct.
And there's something I wanted to kind of chime in on real quick, is that in terms of using less animal products, I think that people should consider alternative diets. And I'm not a preacher on this, and I respect people's food choices, but
Sure.
You have basically most people are omnivorous. Some people will cut out meat, but they'll do dairy, and they're called vegetarians. Some people cut out all animal products. They're vegans. And there's a new term I heard, which I think might be appealing to people. It's called the flexitarian. And
Right.
that might be somebody that, Monday through Friday is omnivorous. On the weekends, they're vegan. And it's just kind of a way to change up things. And that has an impact. Just imagine if every omnivore did that. All of a sudden, you'd have less need for a lot, 1/5 of the, meat. And as I said, I'm not into judging people. I think that's counterproductive, and it's much better just to talk about it and give people options.
Absolutely. And that's one of that's a good point that you bring up. One of the challenges that I see when I talk about the health benefits of food, people think that, a plant-based diet, they still think that it's just lettuce and tomatoes and celery, but it's a lot more than that these days. And as you mentioned, there are many options out there for people to cut back on some of that unhealthy food and to increase some of the plant-based and fresh foods. There's plenty of it out there. The other thing is that, as you said, one of the problems with a vegan lifestyle is sometimes people are too extreme. For example, there's an organization here in town, and they opened up it's a vegetarian vegan society. And so if you go to their website and you sort of look, see what they're doing and where they're going to meet and stuff like that, they have very strict rules that say things like no leather bags, don't wear anything that's wool. If it looks like anything that's fur, don't even show up, things like that. And that's the kind of stuff that turns people off. So as a result, you can imagine that this is probably a very small group of people. And that's one of the challenges that I say is, as you said, people can make their own choices. You don't have to be so extreme, because that's how you start to change hearts and minds, where people start to change their behaviors and the way they respond to food and animals in general.
Yeah, there's a tendency on some groups to be very militant, and it's kind of my way or the highway, and I've seen that from both political extremes. And I think it's counterproductive. And in the case of having less animals suffering on this planet, it's definitely not helpful when people just shut their minds because you appear to them to be some kind of fruitcake.
Right. That's exactly right. Right. Those extremes are really hard for a lot of people to deal with because, as you said, it shuts people off, it closes minds, and it's a hard way to find solutions. And that brings me back to the main point in my passion for animals is that I always think that animals are a gift from nature, and it's our responsibility to respect them. It amazes me when I see smallest little bird, a chickadee. They spread their wings and they fly. And it's just an amazing thing to me. It's just so simple. I'm like, wow, it's just cool. Every time I see a little bird or a seagull in the sky, it's just an amazing thing to me because of all the things that they can do. So, as a matter of fact, most days of the week when I walk around, I go down a specific path because I know this is where people walk their dogs, or it's like a little dog park and things like that. And I go out of my way to try to pet as many dogs as possible because it never fails. Every time I pet a dog, they always make me smile. They always make me feel better no matter what kind of day I've had, start of the day or the end of the day. And what I like to remind myself all the time is that really, truly, animals are a gift from nature, and it's not for humans to harm them just because we can. So I have a deep respect for animals.
And I'm wondering if Producer Rick, you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, you think it's time for a break?
Yeah, actually, it's just about that time.
Okay, great. I kind of figured so.
Okay.
When we come back, we're going to discuss a story about some birdies that Dr. Bessie's going to talk about. Dr. Bessie loves birdies. You are listening to Freaky Fridays with Social Claude on KLRNradio.com.
Every day, 70,000 puppies or kittens are born in the U.S. Cute, right? What's not cute is that half of all litters are accidents, which leads to millions killed in shelters each year. Turns out, those little cuties can get pregnant sooner than you think. But here's the good news. You can stop the accident before it happens. When you bring home a pet, get them fixed at 4 months old. Prevent more. Fix at month 4. Visit fixat4.com for more information. Brought to you by Best Friends Animal Society.
Hi, this is Kelsey Grammer. When military service members head into battle, none are expected to face the enemy alone, but many return home and become isolated as they struggle with the visible and invisible wounds of war. It can be difficult knowing how to overcome that challenge and rekindle bonds similar to those formed in the military. Wounded Warrior Project supports these injured veterans through their recoveries by connecting them with fellow warriors and their communities. No one should fight this battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Every day, we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right
that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
There was this one time I went camping with my parents in a forest, back when I was maybe like 8 or 9. It was amazing. We could hear the sounds of the forest all around us. Frogs singing and owls calling and a creek nearby. I'll definitely never forget it.
Most of us have a memory of being in nature we'll never forget. Let's protect the world's natural places so more memories can be made for generations to come. Visit worldwildlife.org.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
To be able to just get my son to St. Jude and not think about how we will pay for it, it just takes so much weight off of my family. St. Jude allowed me to focus on being a mom to Bryce. And sometimes I'm just in awe of the impact St. Jude has, not only on this community, but the world.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Welcome back to Freaky Fridays with Social Claude. Tonight's special guest is my spouse, Dr. Bessie. And before I forget, I wanted to kind of plug her social media. You can find Dr. Bessie on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn as Bessie PhD. That's Bessie, Bessie, PhD. Welcome back, Dr. Bessie.
Thank you. Thank you, Claude.
Okay, and I'm going to kind of half introduce the next topic and let you continue. Back when the 9/11 attack happened, our great nation was in total shock, and for people that suffer with anxiety like myself, it was even worse. And I actually had a medical professional say that they were seeing signs of PTSD in people that have never been in combat but had witnessed this 9/11. And I took this as an attack, a direct attack on myself. And obviously Dr. Bessie, my spouse, was there when this was happening. And I basically went into a profound depression for, it seemed like a year and a half, 2 years. And I'll let you take over the story now.
Right. It was even to this day, I still, like a lot of people, have that pit in my stomach when I see anything about 9/11. And you're right, Claude, you were going through a very, very difficult time. And what we decided to do was try to figure out, well, how could we somehow find comfort somewhere? And so we turned to animals. We decided to adopt birds because, Claude, you always liked birds. And there are actually, I found out that there are different types of animals that can provide emotional support. You can train animals like you've seen the miniature horses. You can train dogs, cats, birds, reptiles, rabbits, pigs, all kinds of different animals to help people with emotional support. And as a matter of fact, I was looking at our local newspaper, and the school committee is thinking about bringing in therapy animals for children who suffer from special needs or have psychiatric disabilities, things like that, because the population of the schools in this community are about 3,400 students, and there are about 6% of the students in pre-K through grade 12 that have special needs. That's about approximately 600 children altogether. And so the school committee is thinking that they might have to start bringing in therapy animals to help these children because it would help them adapt better. It would build up their confidence, and it would also feel like they're more accepting by their other students in the class. Because I think they're going on the assumption, from my understanding, the assumption that children always love animals. And once they realize that this is the love of animals is something that they have in common with other students, that other students will accept them more, become their friends and things like that. As I said, the whole point is to try to build confidence in some of these special needs children. And so when you mention this story, Claude, about 9/11, it always brings back to me the emotional challenges that a lot of people don't even understand that they have. I mean, it's one thing to grieve and be in shock and things like that, but the other side of that story is you also need to recover somehow. And animals can seriously help you to do those kinds of things. And I think we had, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Claude, but I think at one time we might have had maybe up to 24 or so birds. We had mostly parakeets. We had 2 cockatiels and a conure.
Yeah, actually, I think it was 16 or 18 at the peak. But going back to where this all started, I just want to make it clear that, when people are going through mental challenges, they should seek professional help. And I did. And it wasn't really helping, but I did try it. And that's kind of what inspired us to move beyond that. What else could we do? And so we started out with one cockatiel, who we still have, amazingly. And I think this was maybe 2 or 3 years after 9/11, because I was obviously still suffering. So yeah, it must have been around that time. So we ended up with the one cockatiel, and then I don't know what inspired us, but we went back and we got 4 parakeets, and then we felt guilty that we left our cockatiel's cage mate, so we got the second cockatiel, and then I was at somewhere else, and we ended up with some more parakeets. It just became a thing, and it ended up being very helpful because I had something other than myself and my spouse to care about, and I think it saved my life, to be honest.
Right, as you said, it really there's no way that you can ignore animals. If you have
That's
them as
funny,
pets,
yeah, because people would call us on the phone and say, "Well, am I calling a rainforest?"
That's right. They were lively, and it forced us, as you said, once a week we had to clean the cages. We had 3 big cages, so we had to clean the cages at least once a week to keep them happy and fed, and all these kinds of things. And as you said, Claude, it brought us out of that deep depression, sadness part to focus on something else that somewhere where we could help. That giving thing. And you're right. In a lot of ways, they weren't actually let us pet them or anything like that, but just to have another life form in the house really started to make a big difference. And after 9/11, it was a very slow healing process, but I think it was a very good idea to bring in some therapy animals for emotional support. That was a very good idea. Made a big difference.
And these particular animals were not trained in that role. It wasn't like people with problems, they go to a group that supplies therapy animals, and they're trained and all that. All they need to do is sing and tweet and chirp and whatever they do, and right. Fly around the cage, and we actually let the birds out of the cage and fly around. And of course, we had to have flight safety rules and make sure nobody got into trouble. But actually, just to kind of follow up on all the giant group of birds we have, their lives are fleeting, especially the parakeets. And we currently have the original cockatiel and one of our newer members of our home. That's a little yellow guy, a little parakeet. He's what's his name? Professor Pepperwinkle.
Peppercorn, yeah.
You call him Peppercorn, but it's Professor Pepperwinkle.
Periwinkle, yeah.
So anyway, that might be a good place to kind of segue into something that's going to be very speculative, and I'll just give the topic and let Dr. Bessie elaborate. Animal spirituality.
Thank you. Yes, animal spirituality. I started looking around the internet to see what exactly does that mean, and they're doing experiments about things like that, and what have people found out? And I found a story by a person that I went to college with, actually, a professor there, and I took one of his classes in animal behavior, and I remember him very distinctly. He was very passionate about saving animals. He's still working in that area today. And he wrote a little story about, do animals have spiritual experiences? And according to him, yes, they do. And he talked about it, some of the observations of Jane Goodall. She was the woman that studies chimpanzees. She studied them for years and years. And she said that she was wondering how chimpanzees express their joy, how they feel about being alive in the world. And she would watch them. They would go and stare at a waterfall, for example. And in a few moments, they'd start dancing around and express joy. And they'd look up at the sky and look at rainbows and things like that, and just be very animated in their expression. And she was saying that she wasn't sure if they were just enjoying the experience of nature or if they were just expressing their joy in being alive. She said she wished she could be in their brains and their hearts to see what they were really feeling and thinking. That's really the only way we could know. Of course, this is just pure speculation, but she said that it's a recurring pattern in a lot of different primates that she studied. And I thought that was really interesting because, to me, it's sort of the same thing you get when you go visit some place like the Grand Canyon. It's sort of like takes your breath away. You're just like, wow, it's overwhelming to you to see how small you are in the universe and how small you really are in the world of nature. And she was saying that, animals still have the same kind of response. And as far as she could tell, whatever the feelings that we have as humans, a lot of animals have the same thing. That was one of the theories she mentioned that Darwin talked about in his evolution of species. He was trying to express the idea that differences in different species is not so much the kind of differences they are, but the degree of difference. So if we feel pain when something hurts us, it's the same thing that happens in animals. And sometimes it's hard for humans to think that because there's that whole description, it's called anthropomorphism, which means that you start looking at animals and start are projecting human feelings and human reactions and human characters on those animals. Well, supposedly that's not such a good thing. But it's possible that they are a reflection of who we are, too. So when we feel pain and joy and fear, they feel exactly the same thing, but they express themselves very differently.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is a good place for a little Oscar anecdote. Oscar's our therapy cat. He's not professionally trained, but that's his role in our household. Right. And I noticed with Oscar that, of course, I might be projecting my feelings on him like you just said, but as far as I can tell, he's very empathic, and he's always concerned how Dr. Bessie and I feel. And I noticed one of his new behaviors, and it's amazing. Over time, you think you get to know an animal, but over the past 6 months, he's done a new thing. If I'm having trouble getting up in the morning, which is almost a daily occurrence, his new thing now is he climbs on top of me and he camps out and he starts sleeping. And I'm not, and of course, as soon as I move a little bit, he jumps up and I think Oscar thinks it's because he's hungry and I'm going to go feed him. But I notice he also does this, when he's not hungry. So right. I really do think he's doing it because he's concerned about me. What do you think about that?
Well, Oscar is one of those cats that's sort of like a dog. He follows you around. He wants to know what you're looking at and what you're doing and how you're feeling. You know how animals, they always do this. They look you right in the eye and you can see that they're looking. It's like it feels they're looking into your soul. And I think with Oscar, he had a lot of experience helping those little kittens that he lived with in the adoption center and also helping Mr. Bean. Yeah. And I think you're right, Claude, that he also senses something that he needs to help you as well. Even if it's just to, take you out of a space that's consuming you at the moment and say, hey, look, I need something. Take me outside. Where's my food? Just to pull you out of that for a few minutes and take you in a different direction.
Here's something kind of related. We're talking about spirituality, and that the whole series of events, how Oscar ended up in our lives, was very interesting and odd and strange coincidences, which I think coincidences are no such thing. But anyway,
right.
You and I were both praying for Mr. Bean, the cat, who was very sick, and we didn't get remission. And that's happened with prayer. Right. But we got something very interesting, and short of a remission for him, it eased, as I said, it eased his path, and it was still an answer to our prayers. And I urge people to, when they pray, that the answer you get may not be what you expected, but it'll be what you should have gotten. And it's kind of a weird concept. But anyway.
Right. It's funny you say that, Claude, because I was cleaning up my desk here before our conversation this evening, and I pulled out something that I keep in a laminated sheet, and it says, God always answers prayers. And that's basically what it says, is that, your prayers will be answered, but you never know how they're going to be answered or when they're going to be answered or how, right? You never know if it's exactly what you need, but it is what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah, you never know, but it never hurts to ask, and I ask a lot. I never hesitate because there's plenty enough for everything and everyone. I always ask.
Yeah, yep. And you're very ritualistic about it, and I think that's important. Doing something every night. I think that we think. And the other thing about prayer is I think that people that don't have a spiritual background or religious background, they should do it anyway. And think of it as you said before. Another way of putting it is, thinking of the universe or praying to the universe. It really doesn't matter. The fact is that when we put in that effort, there's a good chance it'll be answered. But as I said, don't be surprised how it's answered or when. As you said, you added the when part.
Right.
So we need patience.
Right. Exactly. And you're right. That's what I do every night. I thank the Creator, and I thank them for all that He's given to me and all that I have in my life and all the people that I can think of that have helped me, the pets that we've had, all these good things. I mean, it never hurts to put more positive out there than negative because it's easy to be negative. That's the easy part in life. See? Yeah. And speaking of negative, one more comment I wanted to make about spirituality. In this article, Jane Goodall was talking about, some of the bears that they use in China where they, torture these bears for their bile using all these body parts. But then when they rescue some of these animals that were confined in cages for years and years, these animals, some of them recover, some of them don't. But the ones that do, it's like they're they're simply happy to be alive. They're happy to be out of the space that they were in. And they can become very loving and kind, and they're willing to give back to people, even though they've been through all this torture for years and years. And that kind of recovery to me is just amazing. That's one of the things I really appreciate about animals, is that no matter how terrible their lives have been, they're like, somebody gives me a chance, hey, I'm there for you. Like Oscar, Yeah. He's a rescue guy. He deserved a forever home, and he was there for us when we needed him to help Mr. Bean.
We're there for him, and
absolutely.
And he's, I mean, I call him a godsend. I'll say it. A gift from heaven. Yeah, a gift for our atheist listeners, a gift from the universe.
Right. That's right.
I think there's something that people should understand about. This is kind of a generic comment about faith. Faith. It's the belief in something that's more powerful than what you're believing, and that's the power to me. And then when people do that in groups, it amplifies it, and that's why I've been praying for better. I don't want to get too far into this. This is not a political show, but I've been praying for a better political climate in our country, and it's slowly happening. It's not happening. I would have liked it to be sooner, but it's very, very slowly happening, and we're seeing a resurgence of faith and accepting people of faith in their place at the political table and all of that. And I think we need more spirituality in our lives is kind of my bottom line here. And this might be a good time to transition to your next topic.
Well, let's see now. Yes, I will talk about this one. This is one of my, as we've been talking already about special love we get from animals. There was you probably heard about this story. It was about an Akita. It's a dog, it's a Japanese dog. And so there's a story about a man, he was like kind of sad and working and stuff like that. And his friends told him, well, maybe you should just adopt a little dog or something. So one day, one of his students came and brought him an Akita, a puppy. And he named the puppy Hachiko. Call him Hachi for short. And so, growing over time, they became best buddies, and the dog and the man sort of became like father and son. So what happened, he'd take the doggy out every day, and the dog would walk him to the train station, leave him there, and at the end of the day, he'd walk back and pick the man up, and they'd walk home together. And this went on for a while, for years and years. And then one day, the dog went to pick up the man after work, and the man never showed up. And the unfortunate thing was, like, back in 1925, the gentleman died at work. But the dog waited, and every day he would go and try to figure out what happened to this man. And he kept going back to the train station, for about 10 years, until one day he just passed away. But, of course, people in this town, they noticed how dedicated the doggy was to his owner. And so they built him a statue. And it's one of those... they have grand ceremonies, and they have tours of where he lived and the house he lived in and all these kinds of things. And as a matter of fact, there's a movie about this doggy. It's called Hachiko. And I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to definitely watch it this weekend. And I thought, that man and that dog, it was sort of like they were truly inseparable. It was like they had found their soulmate. And when you find animals like that, the amazing thing to me is that sometimes you can find more than one soulmate in an animal. And that to me is sort of like the special love that I start to feel from animals. I mean, Mr. Bean, perfect. And Oscar as well. And other dogs that I've had in my family, some of these dogs, I'll never forget who they are. Never. And this whole special feeling we get from animals is just an amazing relationship to me. And people should appreciate that more, because it really is a way for them to give to you and for you to give to them. And then, as you mentioned, Claude, this whole thing about, trying to generate more positive and feel, I try to find a way to move past some of those horrors that we have in our lives. The animals are there to help us do that, I think. That's the gift that I talk about when I talk about a gift from nature. What do you think?
I'm wondering, this brings to light, I'm wondering if in Florida, where they just had the shooting tragedy, if there are therapy animals already down there helping. I bet there are.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. They were as we know, at the Boston Marathon. They had a bunch of golden retrievers out there in the public garden, and people would just come by and pet them. And
You're talking about the Boston Marathon bombing?
Right, the Boston Marathon bombing. That's right. And they also, of course, used them at that Sandy Hook shooting up in Connecticut, too. What was that, 2005 or something like that? And, of course, as well as in Las Vegas. Those for the adults, for the children, for the people, for the workers, for the rescue staff, for everyone, just to sort of get these feelings out, because the animals are giving back in their own way, just to touch them like that. As I said before, whenever I touch a dog, it always makes me smile. And I don't even have to know who the dog is.
That reminds me of another pet therapy story. Oh, by the way, something I should mention about Oscar is that Oscar is supposedly a feral cat. And I thought feral cats couldn't really be a pet, but I was wrong about that. And it's hard for me to believe he was feral. He was found in a feral colony, but he certainly doesn't act like a wild animal. He acts like a very loving pet. And this reminds me of another anecdote for people to hear about. This was a nursing home that had a cat that would basically just kind of roam around, and the cat would invariably be found in the bed comforting someone who was in the process of passing away. And this cat just knew who to be with, and it's just amazing to me. The cat knew who to go to and what to do. Just hang out with this person and comfort them.
Right. That's right. And a lot of it that has to do, not only with the animal recognizing the person has a need, but also the person petting the animal makes such a huge difference. I mean, if you look around, there's all kinds of studies about that. Just touching the animal, touching their nose or rubbing an ear or even shaking their paw, just to get that kind of warmth. You can feel it from an animal. It's just amazing. And I've read stories about, why petting animals is really it's good for your soul, which I find absolutely incredible. And when I find people, and I rarely do, but I find people who say things to me like, I don't like animals. I'm like, what are you saying?
That's very foreign to you.
Yes,
you can't
it's
understand
very foreign. It's like, what? I mean, even just like, can't you get a fish or something? They're pretty low maintenance.
Hey, do you want to hear my latest theory about Oscar?
Yeah.
This has to do with purring. I was thinking the other night, well, why exactly does he purr? And I'm sure there's some kind of scientific theories, but my theory is that purring is a way that cats heal themselves and heal others. Because when you either put your ear to the cat and listen, or just put your hand near what we call the purr box, and you feel that, there's some magic to it. I don't know how to explain it. It just feels good, and when Oscar's doing, that he's happy, and it makes me happy, and I just love it. And when he's purring.
Well, now how did you come up with that part about he's healing himself? How did you come to that?
Well, I was trying to think of what reason would there be for purring. Is there? It's not like there doesn't seem to be a biological reason like there. I think it's a physical and emotional and spiritual healing power that they have, and then maybe we should be listening to purring instead of noisy music.
Well, that's true, because every time he's purring like that and I put my head to his chest, it makes me sleepy. It really instantly calms me down. It makes me want to relax.
So Oscar is a good substitute for high blood pressure medication.
Yeah, that's right. But you said before that somewhere in our conversations you mentioned something about the frequency of the purr.
It's funny that you must have been reading my mind, which happens in married couples. Something really interesting. I'm big into ancient aliens and UFOs and all that, this topic. And there's a particular episode of Ancient Aliens that talks about I think they called it the alien frequency. It's 110 cycles per second. And that's like the really lowest piano notes to give people a sense of how low that is.
Right.
20 cycles is the beginning of our hearing. And at that rate, you're actually hearing clicks. There are 20 of them per just sounds like clicks, and then if they go up, it starts to sound like a pitch you can hear. But anyway, there's these spaces on this earth inside caves and other ancient spaces that have either been dug out or built, where this frequency is still emanating out in these spaces. And there's a theory that sound has a lot more profound uses than we can even imagine. It's sort of like a new physics that we're just beginning to explore.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering Because I actually looked this up. What is the frequency of a cat purr? And it turns out it was a range of frequencies it could be. And I'm wondering if the cat purr frequency could be something similar to this alien frequency of 110 cycles. I just wonder if there's a connection. And I wonder a lot about connections that may or may not exist. But that's one way you can explore new frontiers in your own mind and environment, is to question something and compare things. And it may not turn out to be true. And even if it doesn't turn out to be true, you may open kind of another pathway in your thinking. I'm always doing that, as you know.
Right. You're right. That's what you have to do, is ask a question, ask those questions, think about something that's a little deeper than what is on the surface. Right.
Right.
And that's interesting, because sound is very powerful, as we know. Right?
That's true.
Very powerful.
I actually consider certain music that I've heard. It might seem an odd combination, but Mozart and Charlie Parker, the jazz saxophonist and composer, when I hear that, I feel like a connection to the divine. It's sort of like these people were a bridge between what we consider the divine and what we have here on earth. And that makes me wonder, is there something more to sound? Because obviously music is made up of sound.
Right. Yeah, I know. Sometimes I wonder that. There's that famous piece of music in that movie. I think it was called The Pianist, and I think you mentioned it the other night. It was Beethoven or something. It's really sad.
It's a slow movement of a Beethoven symphony, and it's so sad that I forget what symphony it is, but it captures sadness in almost better than sadness. It's like, it's unbelievable.
That's right. It's like, it's within 5-10 notes, you're like, oh man, you can instantly feel it.
I think it was used for Schindler's List too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that really captured that movie, man. Definitely. Yeah.
I'll have to find the exact piece it is and put a link up on my Twitter feed. Oh, by the way, just before I forget, I'm on social media as Social Claude, the name of my show. Anyway, we should probably move on to the next topic, and you want to introduce it.
Let's see now. Oh, yes, the pet psychic. A while ago on the Animal Planet, there used to be a show about a woman who was a pet psychic. And she would, help people with their problems with their pets. And people couldn't figure out why the their pets were behaving a certain way, or how come they were sluggish or just kind of unhappy. And I guess the whole purpose of a pet psychic is to sort of figure, there's like telepathy. They're trying to communicate what the animal is sort of feeling. I think it's more feeling than thinking. That's what I thought anyway. More feeling than thinking. And then they try to explain what exactly some of the cues are to their pet owner. Some of the verbal cues, some of the things that the animal is expressing, their behavior, things like that. And I thought that, the woman was very effective, but there are people that thought that she was sort of a hoax. But I thought the way that she could relate to the animals, no matter what their problem was, I was impressed with that. And it seemed to me like she had a real serious connection with these animals. She was really listening. And then, of course, I was thinking about this the other day, that sort of people that work with animals all the time, especially veterinarians and things, they also have to be very intuitive. I don't know about the psychic part, but they have to be intuitive, because they have to listen to what the animal is not saying. Basically is not saying. Look at their behaviors, some of their biological signs, things like that, and sort of figure out the puzzle of what it is what their problem might be. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it really is an organic problem. But sometimes it's also that, you're not paying enough attention to the animal. For example, you're not petting them enough, or they want to go outside more, or, they don't like the food that you're giving them, things like that. Because as we know, as pet owners, people are getting more and more, there are more and more, what's the word I'm looking for? They're sort of treating pets more like family members. That's what I'm saying. There are spas for pets. There's like vacation areas that are just for doggies and cats and birds, things like that. And people are going to these places with their pets, and you've seen their fashion shows and all kinds of, special needs tools for all kinds of animals. And as I say, people are really starting to treat their pets more like family members. And part of that also is, just trying to understand how the animals are feeling the best way that you can. The psychic part of it, I'm not sure how all of that works, because this was just the only show that I ever saw a pet psychic. But I thought she was pretty good, and she would help the pet owner figure out what was wrong with their pet. The animal would be sad about something, or they just wanted to change of scenery, or wanted to go for a ride in the car, or something like that. But she would try to connect with them and try to help the animal feel better the best way that she could.
Okay, Dr. Bessie, I think, hey, Producer Rick, are we due for a break?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, when we come back, we'll let Dr. Bessie finish up on pet psychics. You are listening to Freaky Fridays with Social Claude on KLRNradio.com.
The thought of my sons growing up without me inspired me to quit smoking.
I talked to my doctors, and then I threw away all my cigarettes, ashtrays, and lighters.
I started exercising instead of smoking.
Staying away from alcohol when I was first quitting was key.
I kept on trying, learned something each time.
Do whatever it takes.
No matter how many times it takes.
We did it, so can you.
For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
There's a threat targeting America: Lyme disease. Spread by tiny ticks, this dangerous disease can cause life-changing health problems and is now more widespread than West Nile, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS combined. So it's time for us to target Lyme disease. That means checking for ticks when you've been outside and seeing a doctor if you experience the warning signs, which can include joint pain and flu-like symptoms. Learn how you can target Lyme disease at targetlyme.org.
Think fast. In the short time it takes to listen to this message, a small flame can turn into a big fire. Several minutes more, and thick, poisonous smoke may have filled your lungs and reduced your ability to respond. Give it 5, and your entire home may be filled with flames.
Keep breathing. We've got you.
Don't let your world go up in smoke. Have working smoke alarms and always stay in the kitchen when cooking at high temperatures. Learn more at usfa.fema.gov, because fire is everyone's fight.
Having a place to go after school will make you a better student. Having an outlet to express yourself will make you a better artist. Having something to do together will make you a better family. At the Y, we're helping build better friends, listeners, writers, swimmers, scientists, and musicians, one chance at a time. Give the gift of opportunity. Support the Y at ymca.net. The Y, for a better us.
This is a message from CDC.
It's natural to worry and feel stress during and after disasters. Everyone reacts differently, and your feelings will change throughout the emergency. Notice and accept your feelings. Take care of your emotional health during an emergency so you can think clearly and protect yourself and your family. Self-care during emergencies will help your long-term healing. Watch for these common signs of distress: feelings of fear or anxiety, changes in energy and activity levels, difficulty concentrating, eating, or sleeping, nightmares, headaches, body pains, stomach problems or skin rashes, changes in alcohol, tobacco, or other drug use, anger or short temper. If you experience any of these and are unable to carry out normal responsibilities because of them, get professional help.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Thanks for joining us. This is Freaky Fridays with Social Claude, with my very special guest, Dr. Bessie. And Dr. Bessie, before the break, you were talking about pet psychics. If you'd like to finish that up, and maybe I can chime in a little bit.
Well, as I said, one of the strong points for a pet psychic is they are very much tuned to how animals communicate. Well, of course, you remember the movie called Dr. Dolittle. He was a pet psychic, basically. Not only was he aware of what their organic problems were, but he was trying to understand what they were saying to each other. So he would learn a different language, like what the pig was saying, and then he would translate that and talk to another animal. He'd talk to a horse. That's kind of like one of my favorite movies, because I thought it was a really cool thing that he was actually making this concerted effort to learn all these different types of animal languages just to talk to them, even though people thought he was kind of strange and stuff. I thought that's kind of one of my favorite movies still as an adult to this day.
I'm wondering, obviously that's a fictional character, but
right.
You were talking about what appears to be an actual real pet psychic. Do you think this is, well, I'm going to say this. I think it's probably, there are some real ones, but I think it's probably a rare skill.
Well, yeah, definitely it's a rare skill, because how do you really know? I mean, it could be that maybe the animal is responding to her voice. The animal might like the way that her voice sounds, and then they're responding differently than they would with a pet owner, for example. And it looks like she's really communicating with the animal. It could be any number of things, right? I know that's one of those things that's really hard to, how do you say, is it really true or not? How do you know?
You don't. And, this could be the case where even if the pet psychic is not genuine, let's assume there's two types. There are people that pretend to be, and there's genuine ones. It could be that the pretenders are doing just as much good because the people and the animals around them believe there's something about this person that warrants their attention.
Right.
And it's similar to how I view organized religion. At one point, I was dead set against it because of the dogma and clearly things that just are not logical and make no sense. But then I begin to realize it's not really what is being said and what is being believed. It's a fact that there's a strong belief in it, and that's the power of it. So I'm wondering if this pet psychic thing may be kind of similar to that. Dr. Bessie, you're muted.
Okay. Yes, as you mentioned, the whole concept of faith. The fact that the pet owner believes that this person can really help their animals is enough to make them feel better and hopefully help the animal feel better as well. But, faith is one of those things, as I've said many times, just because you don't see it, that doesn't mean it's not true. Because, for me, I've said it many times before, when I started my PhD, I was past 50 when I started, and I thought, I'll just try it as a whim. But it turned out to be exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And if I didn't have the faith to believe I would have gotten it done, I couldn't have done it. It's just believing that you can, believing that things are going to be different, they're going to be better, they're going to be good. I mean, not to go off on a political anything, but, there are certain parties in this country that believe in the negative. And I'm like, well, what is your solution to these problems? What are you going to do to try to help people, to solve problems, to make the world a better place? And if I don't hear that from people, I lose faith. I'm like, well, you're not giving me any answers. You're not helping the world to be a better place for people. So what are you doing then? See, a loss of faith is a big deal.
Yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right. These pet owners, if they believe this person will help them, then that's how it works, one way or the other, whether they're real or not. Definitely.
Okay. Now you had another topic that we kind of talked about kind of generally, but you wanted to be more specific.
Right. I just talk a little bit more about why petting animals is good for the soul. One of the reasons is that I believe that humans, like many animals, are all sort of social beings or social beasts, and they enjoy touching and things like that. And I said it, I'll say it again. Every time I pet a doggy, no matter who they are, whether they have hair or not, if I touch their head, whatever, their tail, to me, it just feels, it's like my heart is smiling. That's what it feels like to me. And that's one of the reasons why when some of these terrors happen, like down in Parkland, Florida this week, these animals are there to soothe the souls of these parents and the children and the police officers, all those kinds of people, because it makes a difference in helping them soothe that pain, as you said, to heal, Claude. And maybe that's what the whole point of this whole giving back. That's why animals are so important to us, because they really seriously help us to heal.
So it's okay for me to call you the crazy dog lady of Boston then.
Well, okay. Yeah.
You actually have that written down in the notes you sent me. So you're kind of half self-described. Well, you've heard of the crazy cat lady. You're the crazy dog
crazy
lady.
dog lady. That's right. I'd pet all the cats if they'd let me, but I don't see many of them outside.
Oh, I'll give people a little secret on that, which I taught you. If you see a cat outside and they're looking at you like they might be friendly, just kind of stoop down and hold your arm out with your hand in a fist. And if the cat wants to say hello, what they'll do is they'll headbutt your hand with their noggin into your fist, because that's kind of like, because I notice that's how cats greet each other. They kind of headbutt each other. So it's a way to.
I see.
That's my theory. It's the headbutting human hand cat theory, sort of.
And also to segue into another topic that I really wanted to talk about is pets in the workplace. The Department of Interior, they have actually set up a policy where they can bring dogs into the office, which is kind of a big deal because people don't realize what a difference just having an animal in the office makes. It relieves people's stress. It makes people more social. It helps the animal. And it really makes the workplace feel more healthy. I was talking to a woman today, and she said, we really should try to at least get a cat or something in here, which would really be a good idea because there's a luncheon in the office all the time, and it's because of the kind of work that they do. It's a lot of legal, there are a lot of legal problems and contracts and healthcare issues and money involved and all these kinds of concentrated focus on big picture problems. And to have an animal in there where people could just kind of come in, stop by, pet, pick up, they have to take 15 minutes out of every hour if you smoke that much. I know. But I think that, having a pet in the animal would really, really make a big difference. And I wish more offices would do that. It's more, some of the private sector is a little more pet friendly than the government. But that looks like some of the other agencies are at least starting to think about it, like the U.S. Park Service.
You just so the audience knows you work for the state of Massachusetts. You're a government employee. So
right.
And you're talking about your workplace and how, having some doggies roaming around would be a good thing.
It would be a very good thing, I mean, even to listen to a parakeet singing somewhere would make a big difference, things like that. Because there's a lot of tension and, it's got to be more than just eating chocolate and donuts and stuff like that. That doesn't really relax me.
You have a comfort dog instead of comfort food.
Exactly. This is
one of those topics where I'm assuming there's been research done, but you don't need it. You don't need it to know that it would be beneficial because we know inherently that having pets around is therapeutic.
Right. But, then you have to look at the other side of the coin, just like the school committee is trying to get therapy dogs into some of the schools. There are people, that are afraid of animals, or some kids are allergic, or they don't like dogs, for example, things like that. How do you deal with that? Well, there are ways to work around these kinds of things. For example, you could have a designated area, a dog petting area, and people go there specifically to pet the dog, take the doggy for a walk, things like that. And then that way, at least the dog, people can access and enjoy the dog's company rather than the people who don't like it to win the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and actually we're starting to kind of run low on time. So what I'd like to do now is let people know where they can find you and I on social media, and then you can, give some closing remarks if you'd like.
Okay.
I'm Social Claude on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter as Social Claude. And Dr. Bessie is known as Bessie PhD on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. She's got the same handle, so it'll be easier to find her. So that's Bessie, Bessie, PhD. So if you'd like to give some closing remarks about our pet friends, that would be great.
Yes, I'd like to just say a few words very quickly. One of the things I want to encourage people to do is if you're going to bring a pet into your family, think about adoption. Also think about older and special needs animals, because these animals are very loving. They will give back as much as they can in their heart. And they may not be with you for a long time, but for the time they're with you, they will love you to death. So I encourage you to adopt and also consider older and special need cats, doggies, and birds.
That's a very nice closing thought. And I'd like to say good night to everybody. And you have been listening to Freaky Fridays with Social Claude. Good night.
Thank you.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.